The establishment of Saint Mark Coptic Orthodox Church in Montreal started when His Holiness Pope Tawadross II gave a mandate to Father Raphael Yonan Nakhla to initiate a Coptic church in Montreal in 1967. Father Raphael was ordained a priest on March 12, 1967, and on July 8 of the same year, he arrived at the Dorval International Airport in Montreal. In July 1967, the Coptic congregation, together with Father Raphael, celebrated the first Coptic liturgy ever in Montreal at St. Nicholas Syrian Orthodox Church. For 8 long years, the Coptic congregation continued to hold its services in rented churches and halls across the city of Montreal. Finally, by the grace of God, the Coptic congregation was guided by the Holy Spirit in purchasing its first church in Montreal, which was later converted to Saint Mark Coptic Orthodox Church on Garnier Street, the first Coptic church in Quebec and a second in Canada. In 1980, Father Bishoy Saad arrived with his family in Montreal to become the congregation's second priest. In September of 1989, His Holiness Pope Tawadross II consecrated the icons of Saint Mark, which were designed and brought over from Cairo, Egypt. On December 24, 1994, His Holiness Pope Tawadross III ordained Father Mikhail Aziz for St. Mark's Church. At the same time, Father Bishoy Saad was ordained Higumen. The departure of Higumen Raphael Yonan Nakhla greatly saddened the Montreal community, but he left his mark in many ways, and in particular, his accumulation of over 5,000 books and other records allowed for a library to be built in his name. In June 2013, His Holiness Pope Tawadross II ordained Father Victor Halim a priest for St. Mark Church. The history of this church spans almost 50 years. The fruits of this church resulted in a strong Coptic community in Montreal, as evidenced by a strong Sunday school tradition, several ordinations from within the congregation, including the ordination of Father Maximos Avamusa in the Texas Monastery. Saint Mark continues to grow through the grace of God, now serving over 1,000 families.
Virgin Mary Coptic Orthodox Church, located in St. Hubert on the South Shore, is the second oldest church in Montreal. The church was officially registered on December 12, 1974, when a proposal to establish a second church in Montreal was encouraged by His Holiness the late Pope Tawadross III. The congregation, about 50 families in size, was served by various priests and held services in a temporary basement until the arrival of the late Reverend Father Arsenios Seri in December 1977. In March 1981, the purchase of an Anglican church in Longueuil was approved and the first liturgy was prayed on June 7th of the same year. After 7 years of dedicated service, Father Arsenios returned to Alexandria. His Holiness later sent Father Moros Aziz on September 24, 1986, to serve Virgin Mary Church. Following a fire on August 6, 1989, that left the Longueuil Church in ruins, services continued in a rented church nearby until an offer on the land, including a garage in St. Hubert, was accepted in January 1990. Major construction was underway in the early 90s to transform the original garage into a church, which His Holiness Pope Tawadross described as the largest Coptic church in the land of immigration at that time. During the construction of the new church, Father Moros returned to Egypt. The church was served by Father Bishoy Saad and Father Raphael Yonan Nakhla until the arrival of Father Serafim Youssef in July 1992. On November 29, 1996, shortly after the completion of the main church, His Holiness Pope Tawadross consecrated the altar of the church. Just under 1 year later, on November 14, 1997, His Holiness ordained the Church's second priest, Father Tawadross II. In His Holiness Pope Shenouda's last visit to the Church on August 20, 2000, he presided over the Holy Liturgy and consecrated the newly installed iconostasis. Since then, construction for the multi-phase church expansion project began in 2012 and is still ongoing today. The extension buildings include new Sunday school classrooms, a daycare by the name of Marie-Emmanuelle Academy, Centre Espoir Québec, a non-profit organization that provides assistance to new immigrants and professional services to the community, and much more. The church is currently served by Higomen Sarafim Youssef, Father Tawadross el-Masri, and Father Kyrillos Murad, who was most recently ordained by His Holiness Pope Tawadross II on June 17, 2013, to serve the growing congregation, which now exceeds 500 families. By God's grace, at every milestone and through every challenge over the years, Virgin Mary Coptic Orthodox Church continues to grow as the Church celebrates the 40th anniversary of its inauguration.
St. George and St. Joseph Church is a large visible landmark on the West Island of Montreal. With its bright white bricks, it acts as a beacon of light to its surrounding community. Its humble beginnings saw it launched the summer of 1989. The Coptic Congregation of Montreal had been petitioning His Holiness Pope Shenouda III for the return of Father Arsenio Seri to shepherd its flock. He served faithfully until his departure on January 15, 2011. During its early days, the congregation of just over 50 families rented small churches and prayed in the basement of Father Arsenio's house. They also rented warehouses and school gymnasiums to celebrate liturgy every Sunday until God would answer their prayers to find the land on which they would build the church that stands today. In November 1990, the Lord blessed the congregation with the opportunity to purchase the land on which the church now stands. In March of 1991, another major milestone for the Church of St. George and St. Joseph was reached. His Holiness Pope Shenouda III visited Montreal for a ceremony placing the chief cornerstone of what would be the new church. Finally, the long-anticipated moment became reality. In the month of January 1994, Phase 1 of the building of the church was complete. This included the gym, the cafeteria, and the classrooms. For the next 2 years, the congregation continued praying in the gymnasium as they had a place to call their own. As the congregation continued to grow, the need for a new priest arose. On the 14th of November 1994, Father Youssef Sedra was ordained for St. George and St. Joseph's Church. 2 years later, in November of 1996, Phase 2 of the church building was completed. And the church was inaugurated on November 16th, 1996. His Holiness Pope Shenouda III graced the church with his presence to consecrate the altar and all the icons. On the 3rd of June 2000, Father Rafael Bishara was ordained and joined both Higomen Arsenio Seri and Father Youssef Sedra to serve the church's congregation. As the community grew, so did the need for service. Father Michael Todari was ordained on November 30th, 2010. Father Gabriel Wisa was then ordained on the 8th of August, 2012. And following the departure of Father Arsenio Seri in January of 2011, Father Youssef became the Higomen of the church. In 2012, the church was blessed to be able to build a second church building known as Archangel Michael, to accommodate the ever-growing congregation. Most recently, on the 10th of August 2014, Father Yohanna Munir was ordained. Today, through the blessings of the Lord, St. George and St. Joseph's priests serve a community of over 900 families and growing every day.
In 1987, the idea for a fourth church in the Greater Montreal area was raised by Father Bishoyus Saad in response to the demands of the families living in Laval. This received support from His Grace Bishop Roes, and prayers began for the church during a Bible study that was held by Mr. Fikri Francis. In 1998, during the Silver Jubilee celebrations of St. Mark's Church, His Holiness Pope Shenouda III answered a question from a member of the congregation, granting preliminary approval for a new church in Laval, on one condition: the commitment of the families to the new church. On August 20th, 2000, His Holiness Pope Shenouda blessed the start of the church, and under the sponsorship of His Grace Bishop Roes, a name was selected: Archangel Michael and St. Mercurius Coptic Orthodox Church. Responsibility for the new church was put into the hands of Father Arsenios Seri. The 7th of October 2000 marked the birth of the church at 328 Boulevard Curé-Labelle, in the factory of the late Mr. Noshe Morgan, and with the gathering of all the priests of Montreal at the time, the very first liturgy in the history of the church took place. On February 6, 2001, the church was registered officially as Archangel Michael and St. Mercurius Coptic Orthodox Church, and liturgies were held every first Saturday of each month. This continued for the first year, after which the liturgy was moved to the basement of a Roman Orthodox church on Souvenir Street. The church moved again to St. Simon Church on the same street for the next 6 years. All the priests in Montreal served the church on a rotating basis. In 2007, the church moved yet again to a church on P10 Street, where they pray in the basement up to this day. On June 7, 2009, Father Mikhail Ateya arrived from Egypt, and he became the first priest to be dedicated to the church. The service grew since then, and on September 10, 2011, Father Anthony Atalla joined this church. He was ordained on November 11, 2008, and served at St. Mark for 2 years before beginning his service at Archangel Michael and St. Mercurius. Archangel Michael and St. Mercurius Coptic Orthodox Church started in 1987 with around 150 families, and the service grew over the years with Christ's grace to serve more than 450 families at the present time, and still growing.
The newest member of the Coptic family of Montreal churches is St. Peter and St. Paul Coptic Orthodox Church. The idea of a Coptic Orthodox Church in Montreal that has the primary mission of serving people of all cultures, primarily in English, had been in the works for several years, supported by Higoman Bishoy Saad of St. Mark's Church. There had been weekly prayer meetings at the home of Lawrence and Mary Henry for this church, but without a priest and a church, nothing concrete could actually be done. Suddenly, all that changed. God graced Montreal with a new priest for a new church. On November 30th, 2010, His Holiness Pope Shenouda III ordained Father Peter Saad for St. Peter and St. Paul Coptic Orthodox Church. The Lord provided a new home in Queen of Angels Academy. Father Peter arrived in Montreal after his ordination on January 5th, 2011, and the first liturgy was prayed on the Coptic Christmas Eve, January 6, 2011. On paper, the church initially started out with 6 families, those of the founding board members, but those numbers quickly grew to over 150 families as several Montreal Copts had been waiting for an English language church. A solid base for a congregation was steadily built. Slowly but surely, the new church emphasized the point of hosting events that were first-comer friendly, such as movie nights, the fall fun fair, community day, outdoor liturgies at the sanctuary in Rigaud, mission trips to Africa, and more. These types of social situations were those in which a newcomer could potentially have an adequate first contact with the church, and more importantly, with Christ. Due to unforeseen circumstances, Queen of Angels Academy could no longer accommodate the growing church, and the congregation quickly found itself rotating from hotel to hotel until, in January of 2012, it was thankfully able to find a home in Église Très Saint-Sacrement in the city of Lachine. The challenge to that given location was that it was situated in a French neighborhood, and as a Coptic Orthodox church serving primarily in English, outreach to that neighborhood proved difficult. However, it would turn out to be a great temporary location, lasting for about 2 years, until a permanent landing spot could be found. Finally, the Lord provided the answer to many prayers in the purchase of a new church and home in the city of Pointe-Claire. The congregation was also miraculously able to secure the property next door. Since January 2014, all weekday activities and Saturday evening Vespers prayers are held at the new church, with only Sunday liturgies being held at the Lachine Church. After several months of planning, renovations to the sanctuary of the new church are well underway, and the excitement of moving in is within reach by the grace of God. On February 19, 2012, Father Moses Hadjou was ordained by His Grace Bishop Macarius for the Montreal Eritrean community.